Don't have any questions, Chair. I'm joking. Imagine us not having questions. Good afternoon again, Lieutenant General.
Good evening.
We wrote to the President to respond to some questions that have arisen through our proceedings, and he's responded. And in particular, he responded to our question regarding the disbandment of the PKTT. I'm not sure if you've been privy to it, because you seem to be privy to a lot of things.
No, I have not seen that response yet.
But anyway, the President indicated in his response that he was not aware of the Minister's directive to disband PKTT. He did not agree with the view that the IMC had ceased to exist in the sixth administration. And President Ramaphosa further stated that the Minister was unaware of, or was aware rather, of this position, and he did not support the conclusion, the conclusion that the PKTT was operating unlawfully. And pretty much you are saying he did not endorse the decision to disband it. And he indicated also that as late as February 2025, the PKTT was still continuing to do its work and had not been formally disbanded. And that was according to his knowledge. So this evidence differs very greatly to what Minister Mkhwanazi told us, because he said that the President had supported his decision. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that. But not too long, please, Lieutenant
Okay, Honorable Chair and members, I can still repeat. The Minister Mkhwanazi was influenced to write that letter by bad people. He must admit. If he doesn't admit before South Africans, he must admit at least to his boss. He was influenced. That which he presented here was trying to justify the actions, but he was influenced.
So we pushed him, because that brings me to the next question. We pushed him on that, and I'm sure you watched his testimony, and he was very clear that it was his own decision and that he has taken responsibility for it. So do you have any other supporting evidence that he told the committee that it was his decision? So you saying your view is that he was pushed. Besides you having a view, do you have any concrete or evidence that can, or where we can go to get that information that he was pushed?
Well, when you assess the relationship that he has built with these people and the meetings that he's held, Jeremy Sikit at one stage, she writes about how the minister was talking about the border issues and transferring of functions to the BMA. This is Mosikiti saying that. I was not in those meetings. So, but when you assess all these activities that were happening, then you cannot help but to reach a conclusion that these three things listed in the letter were not coincidental. They were strategically decided upon on the 31st of December, when the National Commission is on leave, that it must be commissioned like that. The biggest one for me is that now this thing has come out. Now there's search and seizure of these equipment, these gadgets that they used. Then the minister does not avail himself. The team was sitting at his property at Matlambandov. The team told me that we know he's inside here. Can we jump and go in or break this case? I said, leave him. There's no need for you to break in and go and do anything, because you're going to cause a problem. Eventually later, he brought these gadgets. But guess what? They are wiped off. And the team had to then go deeper to to retrieve this that has been deleted. They uncovered these things that were deleted. So you then ask yourself a question, but why would a minister wipe off information from a state property? What is there to hide? So it is those things, and one of the things he said there, that it was Vusi Pikoli that he communicated with. And we are not seeing to date any communication between him and Vusi Pikoli on the day. What we have is between him and the chief of staff, on record from the downloads that were retrieved. So again, it's the work study documents, the cost factor has been disputed, but the CFO and the investigating work study officers were not invited here, but the National Commission says it was written to him, this work study, not to the minister. The Act does not empower the minister to interfere with the structures of the police and so forth. So there's so many things been presented here before this ad hoc committee that proves that minister's reasoning that he put in It was after he's taken a decision, trying to justify. One of them was the president. President has distanced himself. So we can't help but conclude. For me, where I'm sitting, he might have been part of the squad that was doing bad, but I still strongly believe, I give him the benefit of doubt, that the minister was influenced. Being new in the department, doesn't understand much, like many leaders, they get captured by these members and they make them to do things that they shouldn't do.
So we wouldn't at this stage have access to the messages that were downloaded on his gadgets?
Well, most of them are with the team that's investigating in KZN.
Okay.
That is dealing with the case, and I know in Gauteng as well. But
So
KZN is the one that is, I'm sure, through the engagement.
And who's in charge there at KZN? Would we be able to access that?
There's a Brigadier Gnane is a lead investigator, but he works with the prosecutors from the NPA in KZN. So, as I said, I'm a complainant, so I don't get deeper into understand exactly. They just brief me. I talk about things when they update me about the status. But otherwise, I don't necessarily know what they do and where are they. I would have wanted them to be in court in December already, but they have not been in court.
So I think just as far as our legal team and evidence leaders, perhaps we should look into if we can access that, Chair. Thank you. We want to move on to the movement of dockets because I'm just a tad confused here. So when you were here the last time, you said you only found out about the dockets when they were already moved, right? And then, let me just open this thing that's just closed. When they were already moved. So we've had the National Commissioner, we've had Kamalo, Lieutenant General Kamalo, even Sabia and Sentimule say that they did not communicate with you regarding the movement of the dockets. And I might have misunderstood what you had said earlier, Lieutenant General. Did you know about the move that the dockets were gone, or you only knew they were gone after they had already left?
I became aware when Jarrison Tumule called me and tell me that dockets are in Pretoria and you need to come to KZN.
Okay, so it was how I understood it. We still don't have an explanation, and none of them could give us an explanation, and including you. Why would your team not tell you that they were moving the dockets, including Kamalo?
General Kumalo, I said before, and I'm saying again, I was upset with him because the team was reporting to him on that chain of command. So the team was not talking to me directly on day-to-day. They'll talk via him to come to me, updates and everything. When I want to engage with the team, I go via him. So when he felt this pressure in the head office, I think he felt that they might as well just comply with this thing now, Sentumul and them are involved. And he forgot, he omitted to talk to me about it. So when I became aware, I told him to give me a statement to explain that. And he knows that I was very upset with him, what he did.
So even none of the members in your team knew that the files, or rather the dockets were going, even to just even send you a message to say, hey, Chief, they're coming to take these dockets?
Well, we have not built that relationship of the members that are going to bypass the command structure and talk to someone else.
So they discipline like that?
Yeah, well, that's why they've been successful in what they're doing, because they follow the protocols that we've established. So, and we try to support them as much as we can. But they are free to talk about grievances that they have, but on work-related matters, even if they need resources. That's why at one stage I took vehicles that were reserved for the king. Because they did not have cars, I took those cars that were parked and gave it to them to work with.
Just to touch on just quickly, because this is based on your first testimony and what we've heard later on from other testimonies. So you know that both Honorable Collard Barnard and Honorable Adams have been witnesses here. When you gave testimony here before, you were very firm that if you continued being pushed, that you can come with more receipts. Do you still hold that view about our members of parliament being involved?
Yes, I can, Honourable Member. That's why I said before, that when I spoke today, that our political leaders become victims themselves because of intelligence. So as much as the members might think good, I spoke about Mr. Adams was here. He might think he's doing what is good for what he's doing, not knowing that he's actually been used to do wrong. So the evidence then is left behind that, okay, this one did this one did that. That's why I cited some examples about Mr. Adams, how he ended up at the prison in Devon, police officers that were part of it, the blue light motorcades and so forth. It's evidence that we did not present before the ad hoc committee, which we can present if we are pushed to do that.
So do you maintain that both the members of parliament that we had as witnesses, they were just being used unknowingly and they were not deliberately part of any sinister activities?
I like to, all the ones that we mentioned, Mr. Adams, Ms. Cora Barnett, and everyone else, they receive information from intelligence that tells them about things, and then they take a responsibility of acting on it without realizing what is the ultimate motive. That's why I said earlier, a member is released by court with a bail condition that says go back to work. But the members of crime intelligence calls the honorable member and say, these members are not supposed to be here. What happens after that? The honorable member writes, she takes a pause of saying that National Commission, that means is violating the law. When the response comes, she only learned later, that time, that, oh, these members were wrong. But it's after the fact. At that time, when she made that noise, guess what happened? The National Commission removed the general from crime intelligence at that time because of that noise. He removed that person and said, okay, go and sit somewhere else until the dust settles before we bring it back. Well, some of the things that the members are going to talk about are legit. They are wrong things we're doing. Well, let me give a classic example against about the same general we're talking about. He was arrested twice for different cases. The latter one was with the crime intelligence team about the appointment. But the first one, he was alone on some questionable behavior that he had. But when the members are making noise about that, I cannot say they are wrong because it must be answers. I also had question marks about it. I said, how do you interact like this that leads into such thing? But such must be separated. You understand? You mustn't say because this one is wrong here, it means it's wrong everywhere. So it is that which members get caught. They get caught into such things. Surely, Mr. Adams, I don't think he even knew where the offices of the Inspector General of Intelligence is situated.
So
I don't think he knows where Orlando is. If it was not the members that drove him to get there.
but you maintain that they're not intentionally involved.
I
They've
agree.
just been used. So what I'm trying to say is that they get information and they act on it. So it's not that they're involved in setting up.
No, not in the planning.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
they become
That's what I
enablers.
want to know. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the same approach I said about the minister.
All
They
right.
become eneblers of the people who are doing wrong
That's
by
what-
using
okay.
them.
Okay. So they're not involved in the planning of whatever is going on.
I
behind
don't
the scenes.
believe, we don't have evidence to
don't think,
prove that
okay.
they're part of the planning
All
to
right.
some degree.
So that clarifies a lot. Honorable Adams, from what you know, is he under surveillance?
I'm not at crime intelligence, so I'd rather not talk about.
But you know things.
Yes, I do, but I can't talk about the
you can't
operations
tell
of
us. Okay.
intelligence.
And then you said he got blue lights. Who from who?
I think there was an abuse of resources at the time by the member, which was facilitated by a police officer for that matter, for him to land in Devon,
Who was the police officer? Do you
a
know?
cousin of Robert McBride, who is a police officer in KZN, who arranged with Mr. McBride to be picked up by Metro Police from the airport and driven on blue light
Metro Police.
into the prison. And he arrives there, he signed as a member of parliament. The prison believes that he's on an official duties and he leaves with blue lights back again to the airport.
So how can we get confirmation about this besides you telling us this?
I have it in black and white. I have
Beg your-
statements, I have entry into the prison, I have statements of the members that drove it.
Okay, we know that he went there because that's not disputed. I'm talking about the blue lights.
There's statements on that already.
Sworn
There's a criminal case open against Mr. Adams. Because honorable chair members, and again, what became known, what made Merity House and many people start making noise, including Honorable Adams, about PKTT and the case of Sindiso Magado. The obsession with General Khumalo and wanting to manipulate that everything is about General Khumalo, that blinded them. Khumalo arrested the criminals that killed Magado, that planned and organized and killed Magado. He arrested them. Khumalo discovered that the resources that were used came from crime intelligence. A parallel investigation is running for that purpose. But Khumalo is blamed for the death of Magado. So because there are members that trying to drive a different narrative. So, and then the member of parliament, Mr. Adams, doesn't pause to analyze this. Had he done that, he was going to get the facts and be able to realize that I'm now interfering with the police operation by going to this criminal that is convicted and getting some statements and trying to paint a different picture. So these are just but one example of many of those instances.
So just on the blue lights again, you said that you've got a sworn statement.
That's correct.
So is there anything else? Because Lieutenant General, the number of sworn statements we have here, with one person saying the sky was blue on Sunday and another one saying it was orange on Sunday at 12 o'clock, it's going to blow our heads off when we go into deliberations. So is there anything else that we can access or you have access to?
Well, these statements I'm talking about are part of the criminal investigation. So I won't be able to bring it here. They're in a docket, but I was briefed about it.
No problem. The apartment you went to at the Pearls, whose apartment is it?
Well, I think the person that assessed me together, I won't give his name, but he was renting that apartment himself.
So why didn't you meet at the Oyster Box? Because they have meeting rooms there. Why did you decide to go to the Pearls?
The plan was to control the space where we're going to meet this guy so that you can be able to dominate what's happening there. You can't go to Oyster Box and sweep.
You mean you?
I beg your pardon?
Who's we? You mean you?
Me and General Khumalo.
Oh, okay.
So we plan it together to say, find a space, a place that no one else can come in so that you can be able to do what we can do.
You're a bit nervous or unsure about what would happen.
We already knew who's Kat. So I'm meeting Kat already knowing who is this person you are meeting. So you can then therefore not risk not to keep records of this meeting, because it must build an investigation.
And did you actually record the meeting, or you just said it was just sort of because you haven't given us the recording?
Yeah, well, I have not given you a recording, and I'm glad that the meeting, I've explained and I've disclosed the meeting or what was the content of the meeting, and I did not want to take whatever that we did there with intelligence and give it to Parliament. But for me, I was saying to him, I said to him that we dominated the space. So whatever activities that took place in that place, it's not claiming to be drinking. Once a criminal investigation unfolds, there will be evidence on it.
So besides what you told us today about what happened in the meeting and what you had written in the SMS or the message that you sent, there was other stuff that happened that you can't tell us?
No, there's no other stuff. We came in there, we sat when we spoke. It was only about...
And you spoke about what it is you reported to us today. There wasn't anything else.
Everything that we spoke about is what I wrote in that message.
So why wouldn't you give us the recording as well?
No, well, remember, I said some of the things when we do from the intelligence point of view might not necessarily be admissible in any investigation. So the how part and all that is with General Khumalo. So I don't want to, because it is them that had to prepare the room, intelligence to prepare that room for us to meet.
Okay. Why did you believe that Mr. Nhlanhla needed to be protected? That because you didn't tell us initially about the meeting, why did you think he needed to be protected?
Oh, no, he is the one who said to me, the names that he's giving me are people that are dangerous, and he wouldn't want those names to be known, and he wouldn't want them to know that he's the one that told me about them, because he gave me their properties where they're located. Now I know Steve Motsume stays in Waterfall Estate. Now I know Steve Motsume on the property there down Sentin side. I know Spia's properties. So the fact that he was disclosing such personal information about the people that, according to him, are heavily involved in the wrong, that they might harm him. That's why I wouldn't have. The only person that I could tell out of that was a team that is investigation That's why I sent Khumalo, this is information, take it further, which they did. So the only time I'm mentioning this, in actual fact, remember, I did not even say it in this committee nor at Nhlanhla. The names of the people and the things that we spoke about, I wrote that to Sinon, and I copied that to the Senior Council. It ended there. But Sinona took it to the Nhlanhla Commission and was forced to go and pronounce on that.
Why were you confident that he was not managing you? So what if him and Lieutenant General Sabia had plotted? So go and approach Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, and then you must give him information, because what we need from him, the most important, or their objective, was that they needed you to intervene on a payment of a tender. So why were you confident that it wasn't them just managing you?
No, the intention of him coming to me was tender. He was made clear before he even arrives that he's frustrated with his tender. So I knew that up front. But our worry was knowing the person that he is. We cannot risk it. Tomorrow I'm going to meet him. He's going to take pictures of that, or someone else in the corner somewhere take pictures of our meeting, and that pictures is used for wrong things. So let's control and dominate the place where we're meeting.
But you're not answering the question, Lieutenant General. Why were you confident that he was not managing you when he was giving you that information, and that him and Lieutenant Sabia were not in cahoots on how they should engage you?
But what I'm saying, or remember, is that right at the onset, the intention of coming to me was because of his frustration with his contract. That one I knew right at the onset. But to make me help him to meet up with Jordan Hall, he's going to give information. It's the information that I did not trust.
Okay.
It's an information that he was going to give that we were not 100% sure whether he's going to be telling us the honest truth, or he wanted to capture us or me into his web. That's why we said we identify the venue, we dominate the venue, he must come to our place that we are controlling.
Did you threaten Major General Sanoa that you were going to inform Steve, what is it?
Steve Motsumi.
Motsumi, yeah.
I wrote that in a WhatsApp message.
It was only in the message. There was nothing else.
I never spoke to him after that. I was actually making him aware that his friend that he brought to me, he's the one who spoke about the meeting. Now that he had introduced the meeting, the content of the meeting is going to become known. And when it's becoming known, he must not blame me for making it known, because he's the one who introduced the meeting. I did not introduce the meeting.
And what did you know, Steve, or what did you know about Steve at the time when you sent the message to Major General Sanoa?
Well, at the time, I did not know who Steve Motsumi. When he mentioned the name, I just took note of it. I know Sbia. I didn't know about Steve Motsumi. So when I left that meeting, when I contacted Khumalo, and I discovered that, yes, indeed, he's in the radar. And what I've heard ever since about Steve Motsumi coming out all over, and the silence of the media out there about him, made me believe that perhaps we're on the right path.
I want to go quickly also to just address something that Honorable Adams, your bestie, raised.
He's gone now. He's gone.
He's here, don't worry, I'm sure he's here somewhere. Raised.
Yes, sir.
About the crime intelligence property that the PKTT members stay in.
Yes.
Right? Since then, our National Commissioner has responded and said there's crime intelligence properties that have been purchased, it's all above board. But are PKTT members staying in some of these crime intelligence properties?
No, they're not.
They're not. Okay.
They're not. And I must also, again, I'm glad Honorable Adams is here. As I said, he also fall victim. He came here, Honorable Adams, and withdrew the statement that he had made against Khumalo when he said the riot in KZN happened as a result of Khumalo failure. He withdrew it. After withdrawing it, when he came here again on Tuesday, he withdrew that withdrawal. He said, no, it was Khumalo. I want to invite all the members to take the Human Rights Commission report
That's my
I
question.
want you to take, I want to invite all of you to go and check at the PKTT deployment, the call-up instruction, the paperwork. Who was deployed? Where were they deployed? Where did they stay? So they can see where was Kumalo when the road happened. That whole period, I said to you, General Chika was the one that was my assistant, was heading intelligence. He retired last year. So he was in charge of intelligence, was a major general. Kumalo only arrived at crime intelligence in 2022. So again, information that was fair to the honorable member, which he came here and he presented his facts. Oyster Box, honorable member, it's a very luxurious hotel in Durban.
I go there.
Very luxury hotel in Durban and very expensive.
It's only lunch, guys.
There's no way that the police officers can stay there. If you want to prove that, go to Oyster Box and ask them.
I don't sleep there.
Go to Oyster Box and ask them to give you a record. That's a simple thing. Alternatively, the CFO was before this committee. Ask the CFO in black and white to give you entire cost of the PKTT from the first day to the last day. Cost for laundry, cost for accommodation, cost for the SNTs, cost for overtime.
Okay.
It's in black and white. It's accounted for.
Yeah, we do have.
So to simple throw a Beverly Hill, not Beverly Hill, to throw Oyster Box as if, no, it's not wrong. But what I must qualify then on this one, honorable chair members, is that the CFO is going to cap the money and say you can only sleep at the 800 rand property. When the members are working, they are going to go negotiate sometimes with the service provider and say, you are costing 1,000 rand a night. We're going to pay 800, that's our limit. But we're going to stay here for a month. And with that deal, the owner of the property will say, no, I take that because it's a long stay, guaranteed income. It's fine, we can stay on this discount. So there are properties that members might be staying in. Maybe when you do a research on Google, you might find that the price is beyond 800. But go and check at the expenditure that the state paid for the property. It's as per the approval of the funds. So there's no difference. If Oyster Box had, which I know they didn't, if they had afforded members to stay there and gave them that discount to let them pay it 800 rand, there was not going to be anything wrong with it, because the money for accommodation would have been kept, regardless of the place we stay. So it is that which we must always be careful about, because members will feed us wrong information.
Just to come, you mentioned the Human Rights Commission report. So when you were here, you indicated that Becky Cele, the then minister, asked you not to contest the report because they had some adverse findings about you, the Human Rights Commission report.
Me?
You regret not doing it, yeah.
No.
July unrest.
No, the minister never asked me that. And we never discussed anything about contesting it. Not me, maybe the National Commission, not me. He has never spoken to me. They interviewed us and they produced the report. I was there, the human rights. And
did you have you? Okay, then maybe I must go back to your testimony the last time. From what I remembered, you spoke quite at length on the report, that there was a meeting, the national team that was set up in KZN, that you had suggested that there must be a shutdown of social media. They didn't do it. So you were quite unhappy about the Human Rights Commission report and some of the findings they made into you. And then you explained that your wife had just given birth and, you know, you had to deal with some of those issues. Okay, we'll park that for now because we'll just need to look into it, and maybe the evidence leaders can just do that. But I was under the impression that former Minister Cele had asked you to just let the report go because you were not happy.
Honorable members, can I beg with the chairperson to please allow you this minute that I'm going to take from you, because I feel this one must talk about when Honorable Adams is here. The issue of that unrest that involves my child. Honorable Chair, if you will add that minute to Honorable Member, because I'm taking this time from you.
Nice to be you, Lieutenant General, because you can even put a minute.
Honorable members.
We get shut down very quickly.
Honorable Adams is here and is listening to this. What pains me is to see a leader of society and coming here and talk bad about what happened in July. And I was there on the ground. I faced the fire. That X5 I talked about earlier that I bought in Pretoria. I drove that car alone in the car because I was isolating because General Mkhwanazi had died and people that were General Mkhwanazi were with us in the operation. So I had to isolate. In that isolation, I had to go and see the operations. I got into my own car. I drove through Phoenix with my handgun, hoping that someone would attack me and I was going to fight with that handgun. If I die, I die. Because I wanted to see these attacks and these murders that were happening in Phoenix with my own eyes, with no escort. I drove that night. That's a sacrifice that I made. The riot starts and the riot ends, Mr. Adams. The ministers, they come down to KZN after the riots. After the riots, they visit KZN. Why do they visit? It's because their boss, which is the President of the Republic, is coming to visit the following day to assess the damage. So when ministers arrive late at the airport and they drive and they see what is happening around and we brief them, the following day the President lands. I'm the one who's doing the briefing. The following day the President lands. That time we're busy with the Mopup operation. We are cleaning now. The dust is settled. We are cleaning. The President arrives. I'm the one that takes the President around all these sites in KZN. In Durban. Me, this one. The President satisfied and he hears the plan of how we're going to deal with this and investigation and so forth. He gets on the aeroplane, he flies out. 2 days later, we are busy with cleanup investigation. There's no riot at all. I then get into the car. I drive with that X5 to Pretoria. And arrive in Pretoria, the following day, my wife gives birth, cesarean section. And she stays in a hospital, Mr. Adams, and she gets out the following day with the stitches in the stomach. I put her in that X5, Mr. Adams. I drive with her and that toddler, 1-year-old, for 1,000 kilometers, Mr. Adams. And I leave her with a family. I go to the aeroplane, I fly back to Durban. I'm not there with a child. I left them like, that's a sacrifice that I don't think anyone will ever make. That's what I contributed in this July unrest. To come here and make it look like I neglected the duty, I prioritized the child over the safety of the citizens. You were not there, sir. I was here. So it is that I want to address because it's a very sensitive thing to me, personally. So if I can do that and someone who's a leader of society doesn't appreciate, I take an offense on it. The facts are there. Timelines of the violence are there. We are not in the business of thumb-sucking dates. We must say the riots happened on this date, ended on this day. This day what happened, and that day what happened, and that day what happened. So when I go, it's because there's no more violence. So for him to say, I neglect the job, it's the same with the former Speaker of this Parliament, who herself said that. She was sitting, Mr. Adams, she's the one who was sitting at Oyster Box, claiming to be running operation, with operation, a Mopup operation, sitting at Oyster Box. That's the Minister of Defense who was sitting there. So when I present these things, it sounded as if I'm arrogant before the Human Rights Commission, but I was giving the facts. I was telling the minister that the soldiers don't have equipment to do the work. You're calling them to come to Cape Town. I don't know what are they using to work in Cape Town, because they don't have tents to sleep on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. I think you and Honorable Adams must have a moment.
Now at the room, one of us will
I
come
don't
out.
want, no.
Give us a room. One of us will come.
Lieutenant General, you can't say that. That's like a threat.
Say again?
Point of order.
Can't do that.
General Mkhwanazi is threatening a member of parliament. Please.
Yes.
No, I wanted to tell the honorable member that her time has ended.
But the general did not tell who is going to come out. He said, one of us is going to come out. He did not tell which one.
Honorable Chair, I begged for a minute for the old member because I took that time to air my unhappiness about Mr. Adams. Can you please?
Yeah, it's,
No, she knows I'm forever benevolent. When we started, we agreed that today members will, upon the expiry of their time, they will not speak for more than 15 minutes.
okay, now I don't,
So she can still engage with you until 20 past.
I don't think it's going to go that far. I just wanted us to go to the issue of the kidnapping case. You said there was a private investigator. Do you know the name of the private investigator that's linked to Sabia and Khan?
I'll get you, honorable member. I don't have his details here, but I'm going to get the team to send it to me.
Okay, thank you. And then I also just wasn't clear, and I might have missed it. You said that the investigation was messed up, and that's why the charges were withdrawn or the case was closed. So on which side? Was it the prosecutors or was it the investigators in SAPS that messed up the case? I didn't understand what you were saying. And I think you also mentioned that there were some processes that were being taken against those who messed up the case.
Yeah, well, I said earlier, honorable member, that investigations are run by DPCI. So I was not privy to the docket, the details of it. But what I know is that the DPP in KZN wrote and they nullified to prosecute. From what I gather is that the nullification of prosecution is not because the crime was not committed, but the nullification of the investigation is the method that were used in the investigation. For one of the things that I hear that might have been an issue is that this Nhlanhla, who had ran allegedly with a suspect to Mozambique, how he was brought back in. Yes, on paper, Home Affairs and everything, temporary passport to come in. However, the team was waiting for him at the border. So when he landed, they took him. So which means it was a way of bringing him in, but without using their courts processes in Mozambique. I suspect it's things like those that were technicalities that led into a withdrawal case. Not to say the crime was not committed, not to say those people that were arrested were not good, correct suspects that should have been arrested. But again, it's me talking from what verbally I was hearing from the DPP.
the information
But what was written down as a complaint was sent to via NDPP to DPCI. And I'm told there's a disciplinary case that is running currently against those members that were involved in that investigation.
Okay, that's what I just wanted clarity on. So as a committee chair, if we can write both to the DPP and also to the DPCI to ask and give us details. The evidence leaders are not even listening. Our legal team is on the phone. So we can just write and get information and clarity about the case, because the testimony we had here was quite long and detailed. So it's going to help us in our deliberations. Lieutenant General Sentamule. So her CV that she presented to the committee was very impressive, Lieutenant General. And personally, I was very impressed. I think I even got teary at some point. So what is not impressive in your opinion about her CV or her experience with starting in a state security agency and then in SAPS?
I have not scrutinized the CV, honorable member, but I believe that in a career in the organization might be impressive to some degree. However, one moving within the ranks in the police and the place where you're working, you have to go back and ask the credentials of the person. So for Mkhwanazi to wake up the next day and become the head of investigation, and he has never ran investigations in the past, there's always going to be a question mark. But again, management experience might cover that, might make up for that. So I do not know what her CV entails between the period when she joined the police up until now. But I like to believe the training, maybe the exposure of where she has gone to, a type of work that she was part of, and leadership might have qualified her to be in that position, which means it might be an impressive CV. So I won't dispute that. I will not dispute that. But it's a person that on paper looks something else, but the behavior is something else.
So you were talking about her behavior. We did, while she was here and giving her testimony, we did have a conversation with some of the colleagues that we felt that she managed us quite well. And she pretty much agreed. So she was not defensive about anything. She pretty much agreed with issues that we raised, particularly that she failed in her responsibilities for not being able. How do you not know who Kat Nhlanhla is and you, the deputy, deputy commissioner, etc. But she just kept saying she should know better. But having said that, you saying that the way she carried herself or her performance in her job, you removed her or you transferred her when you were acting national commissioner out of crime intelligence. Why?
I've said it before, the abuse of the secret funders account and the resources of crime intelligence for personal use.
So so she was just transferred. Was there any DC processes or anything that you investigated?
Investigation were being conducted. Investigations that I did not see the end of it because Gerald Piaga came in.
So up to now, there hasn't been, from what you know. So
Well,
when you transferred her, Lieutenant General, did you also instigate an investigation?
That's correct.
Into that, and then you left, and you don't know whether that continued or not. In fact, she went through the ranks more.
I like to believe that some of these investigations were stalled. One of them was Moodley. We had removed Moodley from crime intelligence. We've launched an investigation, but after we were gone, he was back at crime intelligence.
So I think also as a committee, we should also write to find out what happened to those, particularly with Lieutenant General Sentimule. What happened to those processes? We're about to wrap up. Just about the criminal case that you said that you opened based on the affidavit that you received from the National Commissioner, and the main charge was defeating the ends of justice. And then you further stated that in your complaint in the matter that the investigation has been conducted by detectives in KZN, and that key statements, including from Lieutenant General Sabia, have not yet been obtained. That's what you told us the last time you appeared before us. Do you still maintain that there's sufficient evidence to support your case, and what's the current status of that investigation?
Well, I can't talk about the investigation. As I said, honorable member, that I'm a complainant. So I gave my statement and I provided whatever supporting information to the team. The information last that I was informed about was that they were able to retrieve the information that were deleted by both the ministers and the chief of staff from their equipment that was seized from them. So they were able to retrieve that, and then they did analysis on that. So that's why they could highlight me some of the things that they picked up on.
Okay, so that's what you spoke about earlier. And then just to conclude, in in your statement to us, you indicated, you spoke about the judiciary. And so far in our proceedings, we haven't had any evidence that has been led by any of the witnesses that speaks to systemic. I mean, we know that, we say, yeah, the judiciary is corrupt, NPA is corrupt, whatever, but we haven't had any witnesses that has come here that speaks to the systemic corruption that is within the judiciary. Have we missed something?
No, I don't remember. I think it's because it has not been interrogated as much. In a court process, you will have a complainant and the prosecutor and the accused on the other side with his lawyers, and there's going to be questioning that are done, systematic in that fashion. There are questions that I would have wanted to ask that might uncover things, but I'm not in a position to do that, and I don't have a representative in terms of prosecutor to be able to do that. That's why I couldn't probe some of those things. But for your information, honorable members, some of the things that are happening in our country, which I know of a person involved in drugs, a person who's working with us and giving us information, is that one individual is arrested for a crime, is released, is arrested, is convicted, and he makes an appeal and is released on bail pending the appeal, and is told by the prosecution that if you have X amount of money, you can pay for the magistrate to completely remove this case. Otherwise, if you don't have money, stay out of trouble. Otherwise, we will not call you back to court. The person is out pending an appeal. There are thousands of them that are released like that, and they never get invited again to come back to court. So this is a person who's close to Nhlanhla, who's released like that.
So how would
So
you...
it's a collusion that we get between the police officials, the prosecution, and some of the presiding officers. And this is across the board. But in this case of these drug investigations that were happening, there are only a few presiding officers that were picked up that participated in enabling this thing to happen.
So how would you guide us in terms of us doing, or as we are about to conclude our investigations in that regard into the judiciary? Because we haven't touched heavily on that at all.
I will say maybe we need to sit down with the Chief Justice or the judges themselves. And I'm glad we have judges like Nhlanhla that is no longer part of that system, who's outside, who's busy with these things. You must sit down with them and be able to come up with Judge Zondo, who was probing some of these things. Sit down with them and be able to see how can we then be able to protect the citizen from the involvement of these presiding officers. Honorable members, when you have the powers given to a presiding officer, although the members will argue, the SC will argue, but when the presiding officer is given powers to grant bail, and one presiding officer says, I'm not giving you bail because you were convicted in a foreign country after you misrepresented yourself. You were convicted for a crime of drugs. You misrepresented yourself by giving a false particulars. You left the country illegally for that matter. He was convicted. So which means you are a flight risk. You've proven that you have left South Africa to go to another country in the first instance. I'm not granting you bail. The cases you are facing are serious cases of murder and the likes. So I'm not granting a bail. But this person then goes into the higher court. And the higher court grants bail regardless of those conditions. Regardless of those conditions. And he still says, you're free. So a person is given bail of 100,000 rand. He gets arrested again. While he's arrested, he's arrested for triple murder this time around. The first one was murder. Now it's triple murder. He's taken to court. Another judge comes and say, yeah, well, yes, you're on bail, but we're happy with you outside. Let's make it look like it's a serious bail. Then they add 400,000 rand. This person is on 500,000 rand bail for murder of 5 people? How many must he kill before the judicial realize that he deserves to be behind bars? There are people that are rotting in prison that have not killed anyone. They were arrested for an assault, a theft, but they are denied bail and in prison. But there are a person who was murdered, accused of murdering 5 people and more, and drugs on top of that, but is out on bail. So you begin to add to wonder. So when you wonder, then you start probing more. That's why I'm talking about recordings that end up being made, that end up saying, okay, well, this is done in this fashion, this is done in that fashion. But for me, my position as a giving an advice is going to be difficult because I'm not in that space in interpreting the rights, the do's and the don'ts of the presiding officers. The judges that are now seized with these problems, perhaps are the ones that are in a better platform to come and talk to you. So they can be able to say, I was told that one of the presiding officers was someone to come to the Nhlanhla Commission. I hope he comes there. So perhaps we're going to begin to see things.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant General. I think something the committee that we could also do is maybe write to the Justice Minister and get information about bail that has been granted over the last 5 years on Schedule 5 crimes, so we can sort of investigate a pattern and who were the judges or the magistrates involved in that, and maybe a pattern will emerge, but it's something we should have done much sooner, but it could help us during deliberations. And just lastly, Lieutenant General, in the words of my honorable souls and what you have concurred, that you also have holes. You haven't told us what your holes are. Are you going to share it with the country?
Well, I'm not a perfect person. I don't know what honorable souls when he talks about holes. And my understanding on his terminology means that everyone has got shortcomings one way or another. Nobody's perfect in this world. So there might be things that I might do as a police officer in my line of work that are wrong in law, that are wrong in front of the eyes of the public, but I still do them. If such I'm told about, I will acknowledge that, okay, well, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done that. Does not necessarily mean that.
Has anybody told you that you've done things that are wrong or you should have done better and that you've reflected on and you agree with?
Well, I will be reprimanded at home. My wife will reprimand of things and I'll reflect on my own and say, yeah, no, I was wrong in doing this. Even
But
at
you're
work,
avoiding the actual question in relation
even the
to
work,
your job.
even at the workplace.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you see how
Can we
Even the-
get,
you're going to
next,
appeal for another minute for me, Lieutenant.
we must be,
Joking. Thank you.
we must be consistent, honorable members.